special board meeting of HART. This is Friday, September 6, 2024. It is approximately 8:45 a.m. I'm going to begin by calling this meeting to order and taking roll. Kika Bukowski,
Present.
Anthony Alto,
Present.
Don Takeuchi Apuna is excused, Natalie Wasa,
Here.
Roger Morton,
Here.
Joe O'Donnell excused, Ed Sniffen.
Here.
Hi, Ed. Welcome. Art Tolentino,
Present.
Robert Yu,
Here.
and the chair. First of all, I'm going to call for any public testimony on any agenda item. Anyone here to testify on any of the agenda items? If not, any online? Nothing? Anyone? Okay. So with that, we're going to move the agenda because we have a hard stop of at least one of our board members. So in light of that, we are going to not put the selection of the Hart Board of Directors' ninth voting member first, but we were going to put the Executive Director and CEO's employment agreement as the first item out. As everyone on the board is aware, this is something that I have personally not participated in, and I will not participate in this. So as a result, I'm going to turn over the meeting now to Kika Bukowski, the vice chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Members, item number 4, Executive Director and CEO's Employment Agreement. I wanted to give Roger Morton, who served as who stepped in and served as the chair of the Permitted Interaction Group, the ability to present what the findings and recommendation was of the PIG. Roger, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. The PIG met a number of times. I think we met about 7 times to go over the contract. We looked at it from multiple angles. I think that the gist of the discussion was that the executive director has done a good job so far in doing it, and so the board, the PIG was inclined to recommend reappointment of Lori for a term of 3 years. But we're also mindful that the project has an estimated life now of 7 years. And so after much deliberation, what we decided was that we would make a recommendation for a 3-year fixed term for beginning on January 1st of 2025, and then an option or an extension for 2 additional 2-year terms, which would follow the fixed term and could get us to potentially to the end of the project, which would be 12/31 of 31. If all of those extensions were done. The extensions would be possible to not extend, but that would require an affirmative vote of the board to not extend the contract, and there were terms of when that would be and how much it would be. In terms of compensation, we looked at, we were mindful that Lori has not had an increase for, I believe it's 3 going on 4 years. And so more or less the board thought that to be equitable, an increase that would recognize the 4 years of no increase. And we calculated approximately 5% per year to get us to $336,000 effective January 1st of 2025. We had discussions because it is a long-term contract of how we could fairly have compensation recognized over the term of the 7 years. And what we finally decided was that Lori's compensation was subject to the board, but would be constrained to be no more than the same salary increase as provided by the Honolulu Salary Commission for the position of the Director of Transportation Services. That would be a percentage increase, same percentage increase as that. And again, that's solely up to the board to do that. The board is also highly recommending to Lori that she that she attend an executive management class. We've looked at several that we think are good, and we think we have an agreement with her that we will jointly find a class that is good. Our purpose in doing that again is I think that we've had a very good executive director, and we'd like to just support our executive director and help her to transition to even better in the future. So we're looking for good to great as part of this contract, and I'm very pleased to recommend that going forward. I think that's the gist of the recommendation. Happy to answer any of the other board members' questions.
Board members, do you have any questions for members of the PIG or for Roger at this point? I want to say, Roger, that was amazing with no notes. And then on the fly. So, Dan, at this point, what's the board's role? Are we supposed to approve the agreement if that's the will of the board, or is someone to motion for approval of the agreement at this point, or?
Yeah, so you have the recommendation of the PIG, which is to offer the contract. So it would be up to the board to vote on whether to offer this as a contract to Lori. So someone would make a motion in a second, and then discussion.
Okay. Yeah, so Roger would, yep.
So the board can also make changes to the draft agreement. Again, this is the recommendation of the PIG, but it's the board's decision.
Yep. So what I'm thinking of doing is asking for a motion, and if it's seconded, then we can maybe open it up for further discussion. If you folks want to go into executive session, we can consider that. I do want to ask if there's any, if there is a motion and a second, if there's any comments or I guess at this point, is there any testimony from the public, either in person or online, on this particular agenda item? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
I move to approve the recommendation.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or questions from the board members?
Yeah, sure, Kika.
Robert?
So this may be a legal question to Dan. If I have a suggestion or comment related to the section that says continuous professional development, is that an executive session issue if I would want to recommend some wording changes?
No, I think that and probably most of the discussion would be an open session
Okay,
at this point.
all right. So then let me ask.
Before you continue, Robert, is there any reason why anyone would like to go into executive session for this agenda item? If not, then we can just continue in open.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So it's item 6, continuous professional development. And my question relates to 6B, where it says employees shall attend and satisfactorily complete all components. Now, at least personally, it seems like we're paying someone who's highly skilled on what I think is a pretty decent salary, $336,000 a year. Someone with a lot of experience, by saying that the employee shall attend. It's just weird to me that we're paying someone $336,000 a year, but we are requiring that person to complete, I guess it says all components. I don't know what components those are, and it has to be satisfactorily completed. I don't know what that word means in terms of whether all the components have a letter grade. Is B satisfactory or C satisfactory. But anyway, you know, I just would like us to consider that the employee, instead of shall, it should be up to the employee to whether they want to do it or not. Since you all talking about all the good things about the current executive director, and we're paying her, you know, a competitive salary. You know, it just weird. You're paying someone that much, and you go, oh, by the way, you know, you need to complete these courses.
So before, and I think, I'm assuming, Anthony, you may have some input, Roger. But, yeah, Roger, why don't you go ahead?
Well, I think that the intent was for this senior position. It is kind of normal in the federal government, for example, or the military, to do similar types of training. And I think when we're talking about an $11.5 billion project, I think it's money that would be well spent.
I mean, the other thing I think is, Laurie is being very brave in an open meeting, admitting that she's a tough person to work for, and that's been an issue of friction between her and the board. And that this was an area where the board felt this is a way that we could give Laurie the skills. So instead of us beating on her, she will acquire the skills, and we won't have to worry about that area. It is, I mean, it's the biggest area of concern for the project oversight management is, staffing concerns. And so this is an area where we think that Laurie can benefit from this.
Yeah, so the explanations are well taken, but if you look at item C and D, D also talks about encouraging the executive director to engage the services of an executive coach. Again, I just want to reiterate, it just feels a little weird that we're paying someone a pretty good amount of money and we're praising her for the work she does, but at the same time, we're like duplicating some of these, some of these career development matters. It's just a lot of them, right? To me, it seems like if Laurie is open to engaging the services of an executive coach, then it seems like we should evaluate how that program is doing before we require her to go to the mainland or a comparable program to complete components of courses that may be the same as what she could do with the executive coach.
So, Robert, I mean, if I could, I actually, I agree with you to an extent, your general comments. I actually had an issue with this particular item myself, as it was initially introduced during the discussions, but the way that it was intended, as Roger and Anthony both said, was that this was kind of a compromise. And we felt that item B, 6B, it's an executive high level program that Laurie will be able to attend with other CEOs to develop and to improve. The difference between B and D, and anyone please correct me if I'm wrong, is the coach is optional, because we viewed item B, the executive program, as more of an added value to her contract. There are programs at universities such as Harvard, Stanford, other wonderful institutions that help. It's actually a benefit to any executive to attend these kinds of programs, and we felt it would be beneficial to not just Laurie, but to the program itself, if she would attend this program. And she agreed, and I don't want to speak for you, but this was a process, and this was a compromise. D is optional, because that is viewed more of, if she felt she needed some assistance, then we encouraged her to seek additional executive coaching. So it's a little bit of a difference between B and D. That's why it was worded the way it is. But I agree with you, but I think the intent of what we're trying to do here is provide some added value to Lori, and added value to the program by basically, and by requiring her attendance. The board is assuming the cost up to a certain amount of that executive administrative program.
So, yeah, these things are not deal breakers for me and my vote. So do we know, let's see, it has to start prior to December 31, 2025, and shall be completed December 31, 2027. Between 25 and 27, that's when a lot of things are happening with construction, right? That's really the meat of it. So do we know how long that program is? Does it take her away?
And there is, so not to cut you off, but I understand where you're going, and there is some language in here that allows the board and Lori to work together if there is a situation where the project doesn't allow her to successfully complete in the time frame provided. We wanted to provide some guardrails so this thing doesn't just go on perpetually. Right. But we also wanted to provide the board as well as Lori with some flexibility in cases where, things just happen and we can't do it. Not that we're trying to skate around it, but just the project is picking up. It does give some discretion to extend the time frame if it's agreeable by all parties.
But extending the time frame, do we have to check with whatever university it is before we extend the time frame?
Sure. Robert, we looked at a number of illustrative type courses, and there are courses that are offered by UCLA, by Berkeley, by Columbia, by Harvard, by MIT. They're offered several times a year. They have different durations. Some of them have a week off campus, on campus, and then a period of online back in the local area. Some of them have advisors that stay with the person from sort of as a professional coach. There's a variety of them, and we've left it with just time frames for brackets, as someone said, as Kika said. But there are, believe me, there are numerous choice options of very reputable courses. I recall one that I went to when I was at OTS. That I went to a course on interest-based arbitration at Harvard. That was one that we paid for my attendance, and I see it somewhat the same as that type of course.
I'm good, Chair. I don't want to belabor the point. Yeah.
Okay, you sure?
I'm positive.
Okay. Is there any
Good
other?
questions, though, Robert.
Yeah, no.
Very good questions.
And I'd just like to point out that this is not unusual, even in this area. I mean, Peter Rogoff, after being administrator of the FTA, was required by Seattle Sound Transit to hire an executive coach. So nobody's perfect. Even if you're a cabinet member in this country, you could still be advised that you could do with polishing up your skills, I think.
Oh, no, absolutely. I'm not suggesting we shouldn't do it. My question has to do with maybe some duplication, maybe some, what are the exact objective of having all this? Not just one. If it's just one, that's fine. But, it seems some of the things are duplicate, but that's all right. I mean, if Lori would agree, that's fine. I'm not going.
Anybody else have any questions or comments regarding, or suggestions regarding the agreement as presented?
Chair,
Yes.
Natalie.
Yes,
Yeah,
Natalie.
so I have a few things in the agreement itself. A couple of these are just kind of typos and things that need to be changed, but the page 1, the second paragraph at the end of the second line, that a space needs to be added between charter and or. Page 2 under Board of Directors, I just happened to notice that, state appointees are not listed. I understand why, but we're a part of this board and it would be nice to be acknowledged in the agreement. Page 4, 3B, there shouldn't be a period after option because the sentence continues. On page 6, as Robert noted, the executive coach is encouraged.
Natalie,
Yes?
sorry to interrupt, but could you go back to the last one on page, I think it was page 4?
You know what? Okay, page 4. Page 4, 3B, under 3B. There should not be a period there because the sentence continues on. I think it should be a semicolon. It's
Yeah.
just a minor thing.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so then under the continuing professional education or development, I understand where Robert is coming from, and it does say that the Heart Board would pay for that. I do feel like there's a little bit of duplication there potentially. But the main meat of my comments I'd like to go over is the confidentiality agreement, which is attached as an exhibit to this agreement. The charter actually requires all officers, elected officials, appointed officers, employees to be let's see, it says exactly, no elected or appointed officer or employee shall disclose confidential information. That's in the charter. That applies to Roger, that applies to all of us. And so this whole confidentiality agreement, I feel, is over the top. I mean, why don't we have an ethics agreement? I mean, that ethics laws are important too. So with that in mind, I had some comments on specific items in the confidentiality agreement. Also noting that this is, I think, word for word, the same agreement that board members are required to sign. So in the page 1, the first paragraph at the end, it says that this applies basically to any information that the person who's the object of this knows or has reason to know should be deemed confidential. And I always had a question about that because sometimes, did somebody want to say something? Can I just make my comments?
Yeah, of course.
So, that sometimes can be a questionable thing. In paragraph A3, and this applies to several parts in the agreement, it says, never transfer the document except to another person who has signed a current declaration of confidentiality approved by the executive director. So first of all, does the executive director then get a list of everyone who's signed agreements? I mean, I would imagine that there are more than just the board, and she may not know which board members have signed or not signed. I mean, when we have new board members coming on. And then the fact that the confidentiality agreement is approved by the executive director and signed by the executive director, to me, just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Under that same paragraph A, again, 4 says, unless directed by the executive director. 5, this one I have a real problem with. Never reproduce the confidential agreement, or government record in whole or part, except with the prior approval of the executive director. Okay, so if you think about it, if an email comes in, you have it sitting on your server, and then you download it to your phone or you download it to your computer, you've made a digital copy of that record. So what this says to me anyway is that you have to have permission to do that. And for Lori, that means she has to give herself permission. So I think the whole thing should be removed, but if it's going to be kept, then Lori shouldn't be approving her own actions. With respect to B, again, it has the approval by the executive director, and she's the one signing it. Paragraph 2A, same comment that, basically Lori is approving her own actions. Number 3, this one also is a big thing for me. This requires that all emails include this disclosure statement. And I've seen emails come into me from board members that don't have this on it. So, personally, I think it's very unreasonable to request that it be required in all emails. That's just my opinion. And then lastly, number 4. So if there's if Lori were to, disclose something confidential that she shouldn't have, then she's supposed to report to herself. Again, it just doesn't make sense. And number 5, I just want to point out that it says, the person could be subject to, of course, disciplinary action, but also potentially criminal penalties. So bottom line is, personally, I don't think this is needed by any one of us. But if you're going to have it, at least have it make some sense. Thank you, Chair. Those are my comments.
Thanks, Natalie. Besides the, well, let me ask this question. So I do want to say that I don't recall the confidentiality agreement being a part of the discussion in the permitted interaction group, and I was quite frankly surprised that it was included after the fact. Do we know, I guess this is a question for Dan or for Cindy, do we know if other previous CEO contracts included the similar declaration of confidentiality, or is this the first, or what's the rationale with including this, and why did we include this after the permitted interaction group?
Sure. So Cindy would be able to speak to previous CEOs. I can say that Lori has already signed this, so this agreement is already in place from several years ago.
Previous contracts.
Yeah.
Such historical. So do we need to include it now, or are the previous confidentiality agreements still in effect?
As far as I'm concerned, the previous one is still in effect. It doesn't have an end date, and so there was a reference in the agreement to the attachment of the confidentiality agreement itself, so that's where that had come in. And I don't recall whether we had discussed specifically, but my understanding was always it was just going to be the same agreement being attached, the same confidentiality agreement.
Okay, so to some of the points that were raised by Natalie, and procedurally, how do we, what, do you have any, do any board members have any comments on some of the procedural, and do you have any comments as far as some of the comments that were brought up by board member Natalie, as far as, let's say, item number 4 on page 2, where she's basically policing herself? How do we handle that procedurally if that situation were to occur?
So a couple of things. One is, I think that if the board wants to have a discussion about the contents of the confidentiality agreement, we can certainly do that. I recommend an executive session for that so that I can give the board legal advice on the particular agreement. Again, I think for this particular discussion, given that Lori's already signed it, I think it's moot at this point. So my suggestion would be hold it for another day, and we can have a thorough discussion about that in executive session.
Okay.
If I may.
Yeah.
If she's already signed it, this should not be a part of this agreement. This contract or whatever. So if we can remove that from that, I would be good with it.
Natalie, how do you feel if we just remove the confidentiality agreement from this?
I think I would be fine with that. And, you know, I'd still like to have a follow-up discussion at another day because I think it's important for board members to understand what they have signed. But also note, if I read the employment agreement, if I understood it correctly, this supersedes the prior agreement. So, but I'm fine with having it taken off. I think that would be better.
Okay, so I think to Dan's point, it is referenced in the agreement.
So what I would do is if the board wants to not have Lori sign the confidentiality agreement now, then I would probably recommend a change to paragraph 10 to just say that she acknowledges access to confidential information relating to HRTP and related obligations and duties as set forth in the Declaration of Confidentiality that she has previously signed.
I'm fine with that.
I move that we adopt that language.
Okay, is it, can I get a second?
That's friendly second, Jeff.
So we have a motion and amendment to amend the language in item number 10 related to confidentiality as stated by Dan. Dan, you want to restate what you said, or can you?
Sure, yeah, I
Okay.
can read it out in full. So paragraph 10 would read confidentiality. Employee acknowledges her access to confidential information relating to the HRTP and related obligations and duties as set forth in the Declaration of Confidentiality that she has previously signed. And I think I would also like to add, and by this reference incorporated herein. So keep that last phrase.
Everybody okay with that amendment?
No objection.
Okay. Any other, thank you, Natalie. Any other comments? Anybody? So, Lori, I mean, I did want to give you an opportunity to provide comments, if any, at this time, if you wanted to provide comments.
On the whole, the contract, not just the confidentiality.
Yeah,
Oh,
on
no,
the,
I just wanted to thank the PIG and thank the board members for the vote of confidence. And Roger, as soon as you took over, it was one in-person 1.5 hour meeting and then 45 minutes in the second virtual. So really appreciate the PIG's work in this and the entire board for supporting this. Thank you.
any other discussion? If there's no other discussion, there has been a motion and an amendment to the agreement as previously stated. So, you know what? Do I have to amend the motion? Or can we?
I think we can do it as amended. I just want to make clear too that I was also going to make the changes to the typographical things that Natalie had pointed out. I think that was on
Did you guys
page-
catch them all?
I believe I
was
did. I
rapid
believe
fire.
we have on page 1, there's a space missing, and on page 4, there's a period that should be deleted, and then we made the substantive change that we just discussed. So I think it's those 3 changes to the draft agreement.
What about on page 2, Board of Directors? Is there anything that you can recommend to reference the appointees, the state appointees, or to Natalie's point?
I suppose that's up to the board. I mean, right now we're following the charter language, and Act 1 was a statute, not the charter, so that's why we had sort of followed this structure.
Yes, Roger.
Yeah, for myself, I'm sympathetic to Natalie's comment. I think it's a larger issue than this employment agreement, and I think that there should be a discussion at some point. I don't know whether it's with CORE. I think CORE has advised us on charter members and that's a interpretation of the city charter. You know, I'll just point out that there is a charter commission that is being established, and I am sympathetic to Natalie's viewpoint that the state appointed members by CORE's opinion do not have the same voting rights that other members have. But I think that's a larger discussion. That myself, I don't think it really has much to do with this particular agreement, other than all such agreements are covered by that same view. I'm sympathetic to that viewpoint, though.
Okay, any other comments? So I think at this point, you know, if it's okay with the members, we'll move forward with the agreement as amended. We have a motion and a second. Is there any opposition to the approval of the agreement as amended? Seeing none, motion passes. So we are done with this agenda item.
Chair, so just as a process issue, so the board then offers the contract to Lori, and then Lori has an opportunity to review and if she chooses to accept.
Okay, so by you stating that, that's sufficient.
So the board's
Okay.
vote is an offer of the contract as amended. Yeah.
Okay,
And I can, and I'll send the final amended version to you and your attorney.
okay. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
And we're gonna hand this back over to Chair Hanabusa.
Congratulations, Laurie. All right, so let's resume. We are going to go to agenda item number 3, selection of Hart Board of Directors' 9th voting member. Is there anyone here to testify on this specific agenda item? Anyone? I assume no. Thank you. So, do we have the? I don't think they're here yet. Anyone here? Oh, I'm sorry. And you are? You're Lisa Baker. You have a hard stop, right, Ed?
Yes.
Okay. So why don't we at least go through,
Yeah, I think the others were gonna start at 9:30, but if Baker is here, then maybe.
we'll start with this, yeah. Okay, can you come forward, please? Thank you. So, before we begin with you, let me ask, what would be the preference of the board? We are going to lose, wait, 2, 4. No, we'll be all right, as long as Art is going to be here. Okay. So let us begin with you, Miss Baker. I have your, did anyone chair this pig?
Actually, there was no chair assigned for this thing.
For this pig? Okay. Does there anyone in particular who did the report?
Maybe. Yeah. I'm not going to be able to do it as well as you did. Extemporaneously. You know, the first thing to say, Chair, is that what was exciting is that we had so many applicants for this position, and they were all applicants that I would like to say were for the right reason. In other words, they believed in the project, they wanted to come and help. They were all made aware of just how much work is involved, that sometimes volunteer members of this board have to spend 20, 30, maybe even 40 hours a month working for it. And despite that, they were all very enthusiastic about joining. I think the only main decision that the board took in approaching all of the candidates was that we decided that we wanted some fresh faces. And that's reflected in the choices that we made. That all of the candidates, frankly, were pretty good. One of them has worked, no, 2 of them have worked for Hart before. But because we were looking for fresh faces, we decided not to go with them. And from the candidates, we selected the 3 that you have before you. We think that all 3 of them are well qualified and appear to be very dedicated to the project.
Okay, thank you. But before we go any further, is there any reason that we need to go into executive session on this? Any of you feel that way? If not, okay, we'll just proceed. So, Ms. Baker, why don't you first tell us a little bit of yourself? As you know, you appeared before the pig, what we call a pig. And so that's, were there 4 members of you then? Or 5? When the interviews? 4. There were four of you. So you didn't appear before the whole board. So therefore, you have to kind of treat us, those of us who weren't there, and I think You weren't there and I was not there. And sort of give us the rundown that you gave the regular board, I mean, the PIG board. And in addition, know that you're speaking also to the general public who are getting a feel for you for the first time. So with that, please proceed.
Chair. My name is Lisa Baker. I'm a resident of Kailua. I've been in Hawaii for about just under 20 years. I have worked with engineering companies in the last 20 years here on the island and also in San Diego for energy companies. I worked on the project at H-Power to rebuild the third boiler. Again, as part of the engineering companies that were hired by the city to do that work. Also, I worked on the 2010 wastewater consent decree. My roles in those positions were to coordinate reporting, working with other contractors. It was kind of a construction management position. And so I was very much involved with the construction details, blueprints, contracts, contractors, specifications, that type of work. In 2010, I worked for a company that helped Hart set up their original CMS system. Actually, it was pre-CMS. I was very much involved with that, with DocuShare and CMS and Project SharePoint. And then that converted in 2015, and I was very much involved with CMS at that point and SharePoint again for a contractor in setting up the SharePoint access for the Hart people and contractors. And then in 2016, I think that I've got the dates right. I started to work as a claims and changes specialist and closeout for the West Side. So I worked with the contractors and with Hart personnel and the consultants, the CE&I team, as well as the, I can't remember what we used to call them, the HDR folks, in closing out the contract for Kiewit for the WOOF and KHD projects, and then NON and HDC. God, I can't believe I can't remember. I'm losing the acronyms. But then I worked for closeout for the stations as well. And then I moved over to the AGS team and worked on the project from Aloha Stadium through to Middle Street, again, as a changes and claims person. So a lot of interaction with the legal team at the city and Hart, as well as with the contractor out in the field. And I think that's one of those things that I believe that I bring to the Hart board is my understanding and expertise and background in those areas. Though those are closed issues, it's not unlikely that those issues will also arise as we go into Civic Center. And then lastly, I worked with the executive team at Hart to rewrite and update all their project management plans. I think that was 2 years ago. 3 years. No, it's more than that because I've been retired for almost a year and a half. So it was maybe 4 years ago. And then also helped Rick Keene with the recovery plan and setting that up. And that's how I got to know Roger Morton and some of his staff, as well as many of the people at the PMOC and FTA. So I have that background. I think that lends itself well because I know the project management plans probably on a level that nobody would ever want to know, from the actual words that are written down in the plan. And then I knew the people back then. I've been retired for a year and a half, and I retired April of 2023. I can't do math today. But anyway, that's the reason I'm interested in being on the board is to bring that knowledge and that experience. And usually I can remember the acronyms a whole lot better. I'm a little rusty, I think. So a lot of times when the changes and claims are presented to the board, or when things of issue come up from what I've observed in watching the board on Olelo, is references back to those documents or back to contracts and specification, the compendium of design, and other documents that are things that I particularly have knowledge of. So I think I could be a benefit, a resource to the board in that manner. I'm also retired and I'm not working, and I have the time and the energy and, as the PIG people found out, a great passion for this project. I am extraordinarily passionate to see this project implemented, put in place, ridden. I was one of the very first people on the train, even before it opened, when there was an alumni group of us that were able to ride the train. And that's where I got to meet Anthony. So, is that sufficient?
Oh, you'll find out as soon as you.
Okay. I just want to make sure it was enough background.
That's excellent background. So members, anyone here who would like to ask any specific questions of Ms. Baker? Looking up there, Natalie or Art?
Yes. Yes, actually, Chair, I have a couple questions, please.
Okay, please, and Natalie, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa, for being here. That's really an impressive background. I was just wondering, it wasn't real clear to me on your first part of your resume where you list Stantec, PGH, HDR, et cetera. Did you actually work for Hart and then work with them as an employee of Hart, or did you work for each of those firms?
I worked for each of those firms.
Okay, thank you. And then your disclosure statement that you signed, unfortunately, it didn't copy very well as far as what was put onto the website. And so some of the questions were blank. And I was just wondering, do you have any potential conflicts of interest then or did you have any of those questions in there answered in the affirmative that we should be aware of?
No, I did not.
Okay, thank you. My last question is, since you worked with the project for, what was it, 8 years or whatever it was, quite a while, as well as on the recovery plan, the time partially while Lori was here, can you share with us what your working relationship was with Lori at that time?
It was excellent. I actually worked for Lori also when I worked on the wastewater consent decree. And I was thrilled when I heard that Lori was coming to Hart to be our CEO. In all the years that I've worked at Hart or with Hart or partially, it was the first time I had significant hope in this program actually being done. My experience with Lori has been she has but one motive, and that motive is to do the very best she can for the residents of this island and the state.
Okay, that's really comforting because I think you also worked under her for ENV, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so you have a good history with her. Okay, thank you so much, Chair. Those are my questions.
Thank you.
Diane,
Thank you, Natalie. Art, do you have any specific questions, or I can come back to you later?
No, I don't at this point. Thank
Okay.
you.
Anyone else have any questions? Procedurally, there are certain questions that are blank in our form that it just didn't copy. So let me just fill it in because a qualifying thing is that you be a registered voter in the city and county of Honolulu.
I am.
And we had a board member, by the way, who had to change her voting in order to be on the board. And you're a resident of the city and county of Honolulu, yes, and then you are a citizen of the United States.
Yes.
And it does say, does this firm, you're not employed? So that should be the reason for the blanks there. How about, does any member of your immediate family hold a fiduciary position or ownership or fiduciary beneficiary interest in any business or organization or firm?
No. I'm sorry, Chair, I did fill this out. It may just not have.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
transferred
but
over.
we need to
That's
have
quite
this
all right.
information.
I
So
just wanna
I'm
make
sorry
sure
to
you know
run
that.
you through this, but I
Nope, no
can't deal
problem.
with it with a blank. And so none of since nobody in your immediate family has any fiduciary position or ownership or beneficial interest in any business, organization, or firm, that means that they don't do any business with the city and county of Honolulu, I suppose, right? And let's see. I'm trying to go through this very quickly. Do you foresee any possible conflicts between your present work, financial investments, business transactions, or any other activity which would be incompatible with the proper discharge of your duties as a member of the Board of Directors, or hinder you from effectively carrying out the duties for which you've been appointed?
No,
Okay. This sounds almost the same, but it's not. Are any members of your family employed by the City and County of Honolulu?
no,
Okay, the felony issue came off, clear. Have you ever now or ever been a member or board or commission of the City and County of Honolulu?
With the city and county?
Right. Okay. How about the state or federal government? And that's hold an office or position? No.
I was on the board of directors of the Project Management Institute for the state of Hawaii, and that's the only previous board position I've held.
But you don't hold it now?
No, I do not.
Okay. It said you're able to commit to the full term of this appointment, and it would be, what's the remainder of Ed's term, so how many years is that, 4 years? I mean, 3 years, maybe? 3 years? Okay. You know that you're filling Ed Young's position. And we're asking for a commitment to meeting dates and times. I assume you're gonna say yes to that. The rest came out, so I don't know what happened, but it is jurisdictional on whether or not you're, for some reason, under the charter, you have to be a voting member in this jurisdiction. I am kind of curious, and this is something that Natalie asked you too. So when you do your resume, career history, you have Honolulu Authority for Rapid Transit, parens HART. So then you have these 3 or 4 categories. Stantec is one, PGH Wong is another, and HDR is the third. So just so we're clear, you never worked for HART itself. You were never a city employee.
That's correct.
So you work for one of our consultants.
Right.
Now, you retired in April 2023, and since then, you have not worked for anyone who has any connection to HART,
That's correct.
correct? Right, okay. You said you worked on the AGS Aloha Stadium to Middle Street as well?
Yes,
That would have been, was that PGH and Wong and Stantec, or just Stantec?
just Stantec.
Just Stantec. The rest of these are. So when you worked for the City and County of Honolulu Environmental Services Waste and Refuse Division, were you working again for a consultant?
Yes,
So you weren't directly working for the City and County of Honolulu?
that's correct.
And then you also have Honolulu Authority for Rapid Transportation 2010 to 2011. That also is not a direct employment to
That's correct.
HART.
I was with HDR.
This is the HDR. Okay. And then you have Melly Associates, Inc. Oh, I don't know whether that's for the prior the HART employment, or is that for project management of City and County of Honolulu Environmental Services, Refuge, H-Power, 2008 to 2010.
That was the Melly Associates was the very first employer, first employer I had with ENV. I worked for HMSA, or worked with HMSA on a consultant basis. I have never worked for the city or the county or the state. It's always been on a consultant basis. So Melly and Associates was awarded the contract to replace the flag house, which is what we called it at H-Power. And I worked on that project initially, digitizing the H-Power city office next to Covanta. And then I transitioned to HDR when they were awarded the contract for the third boiler.
So, I guess, so your resume, like where it says Honolulu Authority for Rapid Transportation, HART, Arizona Department of Transportation, South Mountain Freeway, would be correct to say that those are just sort of headings, but your employment doesn't mean that you were employed by them?
It's kind of, it's not as clear as that. So the Arizona Department of Transportation, as well as the city and county, ENV and HART, all had to approve my employment. So I worked for and I received my paycheck from consultant engineering groups, but I was not allowed to be on any of those projects without the approval and the interviewing process with the client, which would be HART, City and County of Honolulu, ENV, and Arizona DOT.
But technically, your employer is the consultant,
That's correct.
right? So, I mean, Laurie can decide whether she wants you on the job or doesn't want you on the job, but she doesn't hire you for your consultant. Your consultant hires you.
That's correct.
Correct?
That's correct.
So that's why I think when Natalie asked her questions, and I had it marked as well, is because the impression I got was that you work for HART and you
Right.
work for ENV, but you really don't. You work for the consultant that was hired by HART or ENV. Okay. That clarifies my questions. Anyone else? Yes.
Question. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Lisa, for coming in. Looking at your resume and also the resumes of the other applicants, I'm sure any one of you would add value to the HART board. Now, you mentioned your personal relationship with Lori and you used to work with her or work for her. Now, one of the things is I just want to make sure that you understand, and I'm sure you do, as a board member, from a business relationship standpoint, your role is to oversee the project and Lori's performance. And I just want to make sure that you are able to separate the two relationships from the relationship from before. And if you are selected as a board member, that the business relationship would be somewhat different.
Yes, and just to clarify, I really don't have a personal relationship with Lori. I have a working relationship with Lori, and that's the way it's always been. And what I wanted to add when I was asked about the question before was that I've also worked for numerous, I think all of the other CEOs of HART. And so I have that experience also.
Yeah.
I think every one of them except for, no, I think that's all of them. Dan Grabowskis, all of them, and
Andy.
And Andy.
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm. And Murthy.
Murthy. Yes.
Yes.
Toru?
I'm sorry.
And Toru as well? You go back that far?
No, I don't. Just Harvey Berlander. I go back to him. So I don't know where that is all in that. That was the first one. But as far as that goes, I understand that the role and the responsibilities of the board is to oversee the CEO. I think my impression of Lori is purely professional, and it is in regards to not only my time served with her at the environmental services area, but also in relation to the experience I had with the other CEOs of HART, and also as a resident. When Lori was assigned the position of CEO, it was one of the very first times as a resident I felt like this project had the ability to be accomplished. The other CEOs I know from my own experience of having worked in the mainland before moving to Hawaii and having worked for mainland CEOs was not as favorable.
Yeah, so, my point is really that your role when you were working for HDR, PGH Wong, and Stantec with respect to HART at that time, regardless who you were working with, is going to be different. As a board member, you were not a board member then. So
Right.
I just want to make sure that's understood. That's all.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions of Lisa?
I just have a quick one.
Yes.
Good morning, Lisa. Just was wondering if do you still watch Olelo?
Yes, I do. I mean, I haven't recently. You asked
Okay.
me that in the pig and I
I?
hadn't, but
Okay.
I watched it on my way here.
All right.
So,
And I'm
Listen.
not sure, I can't recall if I asked you this in the pig, but, can you tell us what you believe is our biggest challenge going forward as far as the board and the project going forward?
well, the two biggest challenges, I would have answered that question a month ago, was the awarding of the CCGS contract would be one, and then the other one would be getting Lori's contract in place would be the other one. At this point, I think it would have to be getting the AGS segment operational. And I was so excited to see that a train was running the other day. So they must have energized that area and be testing it. And I was just thrilled. I can't tell you how much that was fun to see going. But also getting it turned over to actual passenger use and then completing it. I think the utilities work is very, very challenging into the city. And I know that contract's underway and they're making progress on it. I'm not aware of the current progress of it, but when I left, they were making good progress. So I think that's going to be always very challenging. As I found with the wastewater consent decree, that digging up utilities is an extraordinarily challenging issue on this island. Once the utilities are done, though, I have great faith that the guideway and the columns and the stations will be relatively straightforward.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Anyone else? I just need one clarification. You said that you worked directly with Dan Grabowskis. I believe Murphy was in there. I think Formby was also in there as well as an executive director.
Yeah, I did too.
And then Andy Robbins, right? So when you say you work directly with them, I've always had this image that, there's like a Vance, for example, there was a Nate Meddings, they're different people. So you personally worked with all of those individuals?
I would say that most of them knew who I was from presenting changes and claims to them. Yes, in some capacity, only in a professional capacity.
So we're losing a board member.
That's quite all right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So
So I know them from the standpoint in a business environment. I would do presentations to them. I would make, be in meetings with them. That's what I meant.
Okay.
I would feel the effects of their decisions.
Well, but I guess I'm trying to determine at what level you were when you made that statement that you worked with all of them. And for me, when I hear you worked with all of them, I assume that, you were in meetings with them, close proximity to them on a regular kind of basis.
Yeah, I misspoke. I didn't mean it that way. There's usually at least two people levels between me and them. The heart person and then generally the management people over my consulting company or the consulting company I work for.
Yeah, I just wanted that clarification. Thank you. Roger?
Lisa, in looking at the firms that you worked for, Hart has this concept of embedded employees.
That's correct.
HDR was, has it probably is the foremost consultant company, but you work for Stantec and Wong as well. Those tend to be more, I'll call them service providers, right? They're in construction inspection or other things like that. Do you differentiate between HDR? Did you consider yourself an embedded employee when you worked with HDR?
I did. Because I'm a resident of Hawaii and I'm so passionate about, I've always felt of myself as being an employee of the city.
Even when you were with Wong or?
Even with, but my paycheck came from that employer.
Sure, I understand that part.
In the beginning of Hart, there was a big push for embeddedness. We even had business cards that were made out with the city and county or the Hart logo. So that was a shift over the years to be more separate.
Yeah, but that was Mr. Schneider and all of those guys that put those things together. But that wasn't the case with Wong or with Stantec.
That's correct.
Right. Okay.
And at the end with HDR too.
Yeah,
Same with HDR.
at the end.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chair. So just want to make a comment on your question regarding, to Lisa about, at least at that, how Hart was structured when she was there, at least when I was there. Sam Canaggio was the project manager. He was HDR. Frank Kosich was the deputy or some title, and he was with HDR. And I think, if I recall correctly, you worked directly for Justin Gerard.
I don't know that name. No, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I worked directly with Frank and with Sam.
Yeah, right. So I think you know, I don't know about now, but HDR, PGH Wong at that time when we meet, the C&I comes to meetings and, you know, with the HDR project manager. So, you know, it's just a big group of people. So, just want to, I don't know whether it's structured the same way now, but before, you know, we always have a big group of people meeting, including the C&I.
Just to clarify, I'm not surprised with that, because I think even at the, prior to becoming a city employee, Nate is HDR too. Yeah, so what I was more interested in was Lisa's statement about direct contact with the, basically like a Laurie level executive director. And that's what I couldn't get my head around, because I've never viewed the structure as that. I've always, like, whether you have a Sam, you have a Nate, you have someone else, or Vance in between, that's really what the thing is. So that's why I asked for the clarification. But thank you very much. Anyone else? If not, thank you very much, Lisa.
Thank you.
I'm going to call Amanda Canada next.
How's everyone?
Fine, thank you.
So Amanda, you were not here, I believe, when Lisa began. So as you know, you appeared before the public bids, permitted interaction group. So that's the 4 members, I think, at that time. You did not appear to me before the whole board. So hate to put you through this, but yeah, you'd have to start off with, I assume, I wasn't there, and we don't know what goes on in the PIG. So I assume you gave some kind of like an opening remark about who you are, and I'd like you to do something like that. And then from there, I'll open it up to questions from the rest of the board members. So with that.
So I am Amanda Canada. I'm the publisher at Trade Me Who. I've been there 6 years. And why it's related to HEART is because we publish the most construction-focused publications for the state. And also we do other publications for other industries like the hospitality industry and the retail brochure industry. But our largest publications are for the construction industry. And we claim that we are the voice of construction, bringing that news and information and insight to the industry. And I claim that I am the face of the publications. And why does that matter? It matters because if I say I'm the face, but I am not contributing or involved in what the largest construction project is doing in the state, then I don't think I am the face. I don't think I am the voice. And so this is where I am, why I'm here today, is I personally feel that it's my responsibility to have some contribution to our project that we're doing here. And before Trade Me Hui, I was, I'm a journalist, and I was working at Hawaii News Now. But I was not in journalism there. I was doing advertising, and I only spent a couple of years there because I wanted to get back to my roots in journalism, and so that's why now I am a publisher for print. So I am fairly new, just honestly, to construction and the industry. Prior to 6 years ago, I couldn't speak with authority on construction, but I could speak with authority on community. And so now that I am where I am, I have invested my time advocating for women in construction. I have spent 3 years now on the board of the National Association of Women in Construction. I will be serving the 4th year as immediate past president starting next month. My term for presidency ends this month. Now, with using that momentum, what have I've established in the community of women in construction, I feel that I can take that momentum and what I've done and learned and my influence per se from that and take it a step larger. Women in construction is a fabulous portion of the industry. But now, what can I do with that? Now it's a good timing as that that role ends for me to step into another role that's, let's say, larger and more community serving. But because it has that construction component, that's where I feel like it's the best fit. So I feel like this is a visionary leadership that's taking the state further down the road as far as serving the community, and construction is the component that's making it happen. So that's why I'm interested in serving on the board with you all. If you want to know, I grew up here in Hawaii in the 70s and 80s, and then junior high moved to mainland, and always thought this was my home. I wanted to come back. So after college and after several years of being on the mainland, I call it stuck on the mainland, I have made myself my way back to Hawaii. I've been back for 9 years and plan to never leave. As a matter of fact, when I see the airplanes leaving the island going west, I am so thankful that I am not on the airplane. So I have spent a lot of time on the mainland and have really pursued my time to get back to my home.
Done? Are you done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, with that, any questions from any members? Starting up there, anyone? Natalie, Art, no? Anyone?
I
Oh,
have a question.
Robert, you.
No, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks,
Robert,
Amanda,
you.
for being here. Very impressive resume. My question has to do with, since you're the publisher of various trade publications, including news in construction, do you think that there may be a conflict for you to sit on the board, being this is really a construction project, with respect to what you may publish and with respect to some of the information you may gather as a board member that that maybe other journalists may not be privy to the same information at the time you may get it. So do you think there's a conflict there? If not, could you explain why there's not?
There could be a conflict there if we do not handle confidentiality and the ethics of journalism. However, Anthony, as a journalist, you understand that is the journalist ethics is of the utmost importance with confidentiality and with the knowledge that you have to come in with a third-party view and with objectivity and no bias so that you can make the most objective decisions with the board and then leave it there. And none of the information that you are privy to, that is an absolute cardinal sin to let's say, use that to an advantage in your journalism. It is something that is very separate. You can, in your years of collecting data and information, and much of it being confidential, on the record, off the record, you have a discipline that you have built that is very strong of being able to keep it where it's most appropriate and not share and not use that in any capacity.
Chair?
Yes.
I actually have a kind of a different spin on Robert's question. So with your journalism background and your marketing background, how do you see your role in helping the organization on a positive level as far as getting positive information out, positive, accurate information out to the public to raise their awareness of some of the good things and benefits that the project can bring?
Well, I kind of apply the concept of a business owner and his product. He may have a product that could solve world hunger, but if he doesn't communicate that the product has that value and effectively, then the people aren't going to buy into it. And so taking it down to the very simplistic level of finding out what the pain point is for what our product, let's say, the product is the rail, what is solving, we need to reevaluate what the client, I know this is just, I'm talking just in terms of a business, what the client needs and how are we communicating that we are solving their problem. First of all, we have to see that they understand that they have a problem and that the product alleviates that, is a solution for their problem. That said, it's all about collecting data from ethical sources, inspecting the data that we have and collecting it continuously, evaluating it with a very objective perspective, and then being able to communicate the benefits to the community. That is, so it's basically going back and saying to the community, this is our problem, we have a solution for it. And this is how we are providing that solution to make your culture, your life, your quality of life better for years. It's an investment to them. So we just need to communicate to them the good things that we've been doing. It's just now we're providing the service, so it's been a year. So let's celebrate what we have been doing. We have a ways to go, but we have made some really great milestones. It would be great to just show appreciation for those who are riding as commuters. Let's say, this is just kind of reaching, but just off the top of my head, a surprise ride from Henry Capono, just him and his ukulele, showing up on a Tuesday evening, riding home to West Side with the commuters, and just to show his appreciation. Can you imagine? That's gonna stir up some. It just shows that we have a service. We appreciate those who are using it, and we're gonna provide more.
Yes.
I think we asked the last applicant too. What do you see as the major challenges for the board and for the project going forward? And I think you had, I think that Kika asked part of my question too. Your background is communication throughout your career pretty well. But what do you see as our challenges, and how could you, what would you see as your role in adding diversity to the board? And
biggest challenge, it's the cost and getting the funding going forward. It's going to be, the biggest challenge, I still feel, and we're working towards that and finding solutions and making amendments. And so going forward, I still think that's a challenge. And then with the cost of materials and all of that, it's just, that's a huge bite to take off. But as far as what you're saying with what I can help with another challenge, I couldn't necessarily raise funds. But for the second challenge I see is what I've pretty touched on pretty much is public perception. And so I am, bringing my endorsement, just I am investing in what I believe in, and that is our project here. And I feel like that brings good light to what we are working on and how we can turn the negative public perception into our community embracing it. And I feel like those in the industry that I have touched on are going to see what I'm investing in and what I believe in, and they're going to at least bring awareness. They're going to look and ask, why am I investing in this? And many of the industry that I have influence on will want to join me in my industry.
Roger, are you Paul?
yes,
Anyone else? Natalie, Art? No? I have some questions for you. First of all, I'm curious about your statement that you are the voice of construction and the face. So, and you said something about, when you talked about Hart, you said that because you don't know or you're not part of it, you can't be the face of this major construction project. Do you recall saying that?
Yes.
So can you tell me what exactly you meant by that statement? And the reason why is because, in my opinion, from where I sit, Laurie is technically the face of the project. She is who most people look to and ask for comments from. And so I'm trying to understand why you feel that you're constrained from being the face of the project.
Okay, yes. I am not wanting to be the face of the project. I claim that I'm the face of the voice of construction. Now, if I am that and have nothing to do with Hart or advocate for our project here, then really am I the voice of construction? Am I the face of construction news? If I separate myself and I'm not contributing my skills or my knowledge or my influence or my advocacy to the largest construction project, I can't, I can't do a change order, and I can't do, the utilities, but that is Lori, and she is the face of the project. But for me to claim I'm the face of industry news and not contribute what I have and my skills and my influence to this project to better drive it, then I am falsely claiming that I am the face of construction news.
Okay, that's what I thought you meant. And the reason why is this. This board and Laurie were constrained by rules. In other words, Laurie doesn't even get to say things, and the board doesn't get to say things until the board technically authorizes it. And the reason is because we're a big board. And so you can speak in your individual capacity, which is, I think, what you're getting at here, is that you are, you've been the face and the voice of construction, and therefore, even if you sit on this board, you believe that in your individual capacity as the face and the voice, you can say, what you want to say. And the board does not constrain you in your individual capacity. However, in speaking officially for the board, we are all constrained. You can ask Laurie. She will tell you, yes, the official position of Hart is whatever this board says is the official position of Hart. The problem that I see, or I potentially see, is that you are not you're just not one of us. You would be somebody, and you pride yourself as being the voice and the face of construction. Therefore, whatever you say that's related to the project could potentially carry with it that. And I'm concerned that, we have an executive director, and we do have technically the majority of this board who would speak for the board, that it somehow would get muted. That's why I asked for the clarification of how you view yourself as the voice and the face of construction. So I appreciate your clarification, but also I do want you to realize that as a board, we are constrained. So we can say things, but we always have to have this caveat that we're speaking as individuals and not as anyone. But a lot of us choose not to go there, simply because, for myself as the chair, even if I say, hey, I'm speaking as my individual, they're going to attribute it to me as the chair. And so nothing I say is just going to be an individual. So that's a concern. So I just wanted that clarified. Anyone else has any comments? Anyone else? If not, thank you very much, and we'll move to the next candidate. And thank you very much for applying.
Appreciate you.
It's very nice to see, especially that our pig came down with 3 women, and I think the pig were all men. So thank you very much, guys.
You're welcome.
Okay, next.
You girls have been performing pretty well,
Well, gee, thank you. That's so generous of you. Isn't that actionable? That comment actionable?
Might be.
Yeah, right.
That's a joke section.
It's in the beholder. Okay, next person, Lorena, is it Modelsky?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Lorena. Lorena. So you were here when we began with Amanda, so, you know, it's up to you now.
I'll go.
Go. Thank
So
you
my
very
name
much.
is Lorena Medelsky. I currently am the operations manager with Pine Ridge Farms, Inc. We are probably the largest construction, trucking, crushing, screening union company on Oahu. Let's see, I've been there 16 years. Prior to that, I was with Goodfellow Brothers for approximately 6 years. And prior to that, just other different things, raising children. And I lived in the mainland. I moved back here permanently in '96. So my mom's a local girl. I was born here, but I didn't grow up here. So, other than that, I was a little surprised that I actually got chosen after I looked at everyone else's resume. I will say that. So what can I answer for you folks? I mean, other than I would like to say that the reason that I applied was because, well, I believe that serving on a board is a service. It's not a resume builder. So if you look at my resume, I've been very rarely agreed to be on boards. Years ago, I was on the Junior League in Wilmington. And then now I'm on the NAWIC board, and basically because they strong-armed me to do it, but I like to support and encourage women in construction to move forward, to do what they need to do to move forward in this world, because it's not easy. I've been in construction for well over 30 years in different capacities. So, yeah, service on this board, I thought that it was very interesting. I am definitely a huge proponent of the rail. I believe that there's more that we can do for the, mass transit on Oahu. Now, I mean, don't judge, but I think we can do more at some point. So, yeah, so that's where basically I stand. As far as serving on the board, it was a service thing for me. I'm not an engineer. I did go to school for that, but that was many moons ago. And, yeah, what would you like to ask me?
Thank you very much, and
You're welcome.
thank you for your long years of service in one place. 16 years for Pine Ridge. Right? All right, members, any questions?
Chair,
Yes, Navi.
I'll start. Thank you, Lorena, for being here. I noticed your work with Pine Ridge is related to some contracts or contract with the city. Is that correct?
Yes. So we do service. So we provide trucking service and aggregates to different entities when they call an order. We do that. We did work for the rail. We worked on every phase of the rail with Kiewit, and then STG, JV.
Is that work completed?
The first 2 phases are. I think we're still doing a little bit of odds and ends, punch list things with STG on the trucking
Okay.
side. Yeah.
And then with respect to the CCGS, is it possible or even likely then that your firm would be working under that section as well?
We're not sure yet. We were just advised that Tudor Perini was awarded that phase. We did do a quote for them, but we have not been contacted by them as to whether or not we will be doing work.
Okay, so my question is, and this kind of goes along with a couple questions that were asked of the other candidate. There are some things that come up that could potentially be a conflict of interest. So I'm just curious, did you do any research on conflicts of interest, or have you thought about that? You know, I guess potentially there could be things like change orders that come up that could impact your firm, that would impact you, or that kind of thing. Did you take a look at that at all?
Well, I've given it some thought, but because of our level of service, we are a service provider. So we're trucking and hauling out material and bringing in material. So, I mean, that would be up to the board, right? If you view it as a conflict of interest, then it is a conflict of interest.
Well,
Although I wouldn't, under no circumstances, would I consider using a board position to the benefit of my company. Those are two separate items. Now, what the public would perceive, again, a whole nother issue.
yeah, so, you know, ethics and conflicts of interest, there are two levels. There's the legal level and the perception of the public, as you say. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is it's not up to the board to decide what a conflict is for you.
Right.
And, you know, you could be directly impacted because you're an employee. So, and we had an issue that came up a few years ago. So I'm just wondering, well, basically, how would you handle it? Should there be like a change order that would include Pine Ridge in it, for example? What would you do if that came up?
I'm not quite clear what you're asking. So if we had a contract, let's just use STG for example, and I was sitting on the board for HART, that we wouldn't be getting a change order because I'm sitting on the board of HART. We would be getting a change order because there was a change in conditions or a change in the scope that wasn't included in the initial contract.
Right. So what I'm getting at is, as the ninth member, you would be a voting member. So potentially,
Oh,
and
I
I'm
see
just
what you're
using this
saying.
as an
I
example.
have to vote
But
on
yeah, potentially you could be voting on a change order that would impact Pine Ridge.
Well,
That's
wouldn't I-
kind of where what I'm getting at.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry. So wouldn't I just abstain or recuse myself from the voting?
That's what I'm asking you. So
Yes, so I would recuse myself if it had an impact on me, on Pine Ridge and its business. I would have to recuse myself. And not
Okay.
vote. I couldn't vote on that.
okay, thank you. And
You're
Chair,
welcome.
I understand that, you know, the ethics and the conflicts of interest, there's a wide range of potential issues there, and the Ethics Commission is always available for offering opinions. So thank you for allowing those questions.
Thank you. And as you know, Natalie, if Lorena is selected, she's going to have to go through training, and she's going to have to go through all the filings. And at that point, you get a clearer idea of what a conflict of interest is. And you may end up doing something similar to what Kika does, which is you announce that that there is a potential, and then you make a decision as to whether you can vote or you cannot vote. But that usually seeks an opinion from ethics first. So there is a process. We all come to this table with varying levels of, quote, ethical considerations, and it's just a matter of, for the public to understand what it is. So thank you, Natalie. Anyone else has any questions, comments? Yes.
Well, first, I was intrigued by, your time in another world many times ago. You were Strategic Air Command. You were studying to be a nuclear engineer. But my real question is, why do you want to be on the board?
Service, education. I mean, I would like to be involved. Like I said, I'm a huge proponent of this project. I think it needs to go, and I like the changes that the board has made in the past with adding Lori as the executive director. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of challenges. You're going through them now. The project's going through them now. It's obvious. Everybody knows about it. The utility relocations, finishing up the airport guideway, and getting the city guideway off the ground. For future, what I see, I really think that we could take this rail a little further, but that would be talks for another day.
No, we have a pig called Ala Moana and Beyond, so it's actually going on, and Anthony is the chair. Anything else, Roger?
I'll let the other board members.
Anyone else? Anyone
I
else?
got a quick one, Chair.
Yes.
So my question is really just, because I think Natalie asked some of the ones I had, and as well as Roger, but as far as time commitment, I know that you run operations at Pine Ridge, and I can tell you that this board meets longer than anticipated sometimes. So do you foresee any issues with, okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Let me just ask you some clarification. So Pine Ridge is Joaquin and Georgette Silva, right?
They are.
Right.
She's the majority.
She's the majority owner?
Yes, it's a woman owned.
I'm not surprised. So they also have the West Oahu Aggregate, WOA. So WOA is basically trash, and it does construction debris. Do you guys do construction debris?
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Construction debris.
So have you, through WOA, for example, done any work for HART or the city and county of Honolulu?
I don't through WOA. So we're two separate entities, even though
Ah.
we're sister companies. So
You have the same owner?
we have that. Well, Joaquin is the majority owner of West Oahu.
Ah,
So he's the president. She's the president on the Pine Ridge.
of
side.
Pine Ridge side.
Yes. So I only straddle on the area of recycling, construction demo and waste.
Right.
So I help them with that. I help with their solid waste permit and all those kinds of stuff.
So on the construction side, the construction demolition, CND as we call it, on the CND side, have you done anything for HART or for the city and
For the
county of Honolulu?
project?
Right.
Yes, we have removed material from the project and taken it to West Oahu for recycle.
And then, but right now you don't do anything that you can think of, right?
For the rail project?
Right.
No, I think I mentioned earlier, I guess we're doing punch list stuff, cleaning things up. So we
Yeah,
are still
but not
doing some
CND.
No, we've hauled out some things, all concrete, dirt and rock.
Do you guys still do Waimanalo Gulch?
Yeah, as far as crushing,
Right.
we do, but we have demobed from there. We're on another project.
Is that WOA or is that Pine Ridge? That's Pine Ridge?
Yes. We're paid by Waste Management for that.
That's what I thought, that it's a big contract, but anyway. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Roger?
Well, thank you for volunteering to be on the board, and I think you bring many years of experience too.
Thank you.
Oh, I thought you had something else. I am curious. Are you fluent in Russian? Because
Not
it says
anymore.
Russian linguist.
Not anymore.
You
I can
used to be.
understand things, and I could probably swear really well in Russian if I had to.
It just says U.S. Air Force. Were you in the Air Force, the
Yes.
81 to
6
87?
years, yeah.
So you were an actual officer, an Air Force officer?
Enlisted, active duty, yeah.
Oh, wow. And then you were a linguist.
Russian linguist, yes.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
He's just showing off.
I know.
Thank you.
You're
Anyone
welcome.
else?
Anyone
No?
else?
No? No one? Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, thank you.
We were really lucky. We had a bunch of really good candidates.
Okay, so with this, how should we proceed? We don't go into executive, just an open discussion. And I would assume that if we were to vote, we have voting quorum now. So we would take each one until, because it has to be unanimous, or we don't carry, right?
Yes, it would have to be unanimous because we've got 6 people here, and the board can proceed however it would like. If one person wanted to make a motion for one candidate and that candidate carries, then you're done.
Okay. So what is your druthers? How would you like to, well, I'll tell you what, we need some kind of motion to get into discussion. So is there anyone who would like to make a motion or just a general discussion? Should general discussion precede everything? Do you feel a need to just discuss this generally? Your light is on. I don't know if it's purposely or not. No, it's not. Any druthers, guys?
I'm just concerned a little bit about the tact, the fact that we're discussing individual candidates in the open, It just seems potentially a little tactless, but I don't know how it's normally done.
We'll find out whether or not it's gotta be this way because of the fact that we can't go into executive session.
Yeah, I think it should be an open session.
Okay. So, sorry.
I don't disagree with you, Anthony, but yeah.
This is called transparency. All right, so members, what is your druthers? Do you want to you can make it painless by just simply move for one candidate, a second, and a discussion, no discussion, if you don't want it to be tactless, and then vote, or we can have an open discussion on all the candidates, or some virtues or benchmarks or whatever it is. You know what, I have a question for the pig, and Dan can tell me if it's out of order. I'm just curious as to how the pig arrived at the three names. Can they tell me? So to the members of the pig, what did you do? Did you rank?
We
Yes.
did. We ranked
3, 2, 1.
1 to 3, 3 to 1. We tied at one point with one of the candidates, and so then we went to the candidate for the tie. We went with the candidate that had the most board members or pig members as a second layer of choice. So first layer was rank everybody from 3 to 1. 3 being first choice, second choice, third choice. Added all those up. We ended up with, I think, with we ended up with 4 members at that point. And so to break the 4-member tie, we went with the applicant that had the most endorsements from the various pig members.
Okay, so you kind of did a modified rank voting Iowa caucus style.
Correct.
You know, we did certainly a modified vote, but we tried to have the modicum of some type of democracy or voting preference for that, right?
I will tell you honestly, I hate Iowa caucus because you don't come off with the first choice. So anyway, having said that, what is your druthers, and I guess among the voting members, do you want to do a modified rank voting of some kind, or do you want to just take each name?
Just, as awkward as it may seem, because it's an open meeting, I'll propose someone for us to look at.
Okay.
Okay, so, each one of these applicants bring their unique value to the Hart Board. And I have no doubt any of the 3 would do a great job and would fit in beautifully. But just looking at the type of work that we have to do in the next, 5 years or so, our immediate need seems to be a board member that is already familiar with the operation, the organization, and familiar with how different projects are handled and monitored. So with that being said, I would motion or nominate Lisa Baker to be the 9th board member. That's...
Any second?
I'm seconding. I would have proposed her as my first choice as well. So I'll second Roger's motion. I mean, Robert's
Second that
motion.
second.
Robert's motion.
Too many.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded? Yeah, okay. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion, members? Any
Chair,
discuss-
Chair, if I
Yes.
may? Yeah, when I read Lisa's resume and then hearing her explain all of the work that she has, I think that's really invaluable to the board. I mean, she's got a lot of history, and I would enjoy working with her, I think. So those are my comments. I'm not a voting member, but just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Any other comments? Okay, let me ask it this way. is there any objection? So I have to take an actual vote? Or can we go to unanimous consent? Do we have any objections? Hearing none, I assume we have unanimous consent on this selection?
Can I just confirm
Yes.
from Art that him as well, just because we can't see him? Yeah.
Art?
I'm in favor of Lisa.
Okay, so we have unanimous consent, hearing no objections. So the ninth voting member will be Lisa Baker. Thank you, members. And she will, so, oh, I didn't realize you stayed and everyone else left, but yeah. S- an issue, but.
I've read it already, I'm fine.
You're fine. Okay, so now with that, let me then just say that you have to get together with Cindy after this, and Cindy will walk you through the logistics of actually becoming a member of the board. So welcome aboard. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
I look forward to it.
So members, with that, by the way, is there anyone who wishes to make any comments about the agenda item number 3 before we leave it? I've already called for comments, but I'll call for it again, just to be sure.
Chair,
Yes.
I just want to thank all the applicants and to echo some of the comments that were made earlier. We did have a lot of great candidates. You know, we had some good candidates that served previously on the board, and I think some of the members of the PIG just expressed, you know, as was mentioned earlier, that although we appreciated a lot of the historical knowledge that some of these former board members could have shared with the board, we just felt that some fresh faces and some fresh minds might serve well. And in addition, you know, we are, not that it was, well, personally, I should say, I felt that the board is a little heavy as far as representation from one or the other gender. So we felt that having having some more representation, right, might be good. Not that that necessarily played into the final decision of who we chose, but it was a consideration as far as I was concerned. And I was really pleased with the, you know, the 3 members that were here. I thought each brought their own set of strengths and what they could contribute to the board. And I appreciated the discussion. So I look forward to working with Ms. Baker.
Okay. Anyone else? If not, we're
Yes, wait,
gonna.
Chair?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yes, sorry. I just wanted to ask, so I understand there were 9 applicants, 2 dropped out. Will the names of the other applicants be provided to the public, or is that like not available?
I have no idea.
Our practice in the past has been just to release the names of the finalists.
Okay. All right. And then Chair, I'm assuming that you're going to adjourn the meeting. And if I may make 2 more comments before you adjourn?
Sure.
Okay, first, I just wanted to make an announcement. I'm not sure how many of you know that the Professional Women's Network does this thing annually. They've been around since 1978, and tomorrow, Lori is going to be recognized as Woman of the Year. So
Congratulations.
That's really super. I was a member of that group when I first started my firm. They're very great bunch of ladies, and really proud that Lori will be on that recognition tomorrow.
Congratulations, Lori.
The other thing I wanted to mention, Chair, is I don't know if you recall that a while ago I've still been concerned about the internal audit, but there is potentially an anti-fraud policy that we could put into place. And I wasn't sure of the procedure, so I'm mentioning this now in case we need to bring it up as a board agenda item. or whether I can work with Lori and Rick on that and then present it to the board. I just didn't know what the procedure was on that.
Okay, I'll ask Dan to look into it and see whether procedurally it has to go into our rules or it's something that can come from Hart's administration. So we'll hopefully have a response to you by the next board meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Before
Yeah.
we recess, can I
Right,
start?
sure.
Yeah. Art, while we have you, I just wanted to confirm because you are remote. We had the vote earlier on offering the contract to Lori. There was unanimous consent, and I just wanted to confirm that your vote was a yes to offer that contract to her. Oh, you're on mute, Art.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Art.
Sure.
Yes.
I'm not sure if, but is it possible to briefly go back to item 4? I just for a comment.
You can make whatever comments you want. We'll
Okay.
give you the discretion.
Okay, yeah, I failed to,
Hey, you were in charge of that.
Yeah, I know. I
I think
was
on the basis
overwhelmed.
that you were in charge of that, this is kind of ironic.
Yeah, I was overwhelmed with the responsibility.
Oh,
so,
yeah, right.
But,
All
you know,
right, you can say something.
yeah, just briefly, I just wanna say that I appreciate, you know, I've been on this board for, I guess, a little over 4 years now. I think, notwithstanding your previous tenure with the board, I think I'm the longest standing current board member. And I was involved with the previous transition from the former CEO to our current CEO. And, you know, I think I've made mention and I've tried to be consistent. My biggest concerns that I've had back then and I had currently was the consistency on the leadership of the project that I felt was really important and critical to the success of the project and maintaining that consistency. And I just want to say that the Permitting Interaction Group was very spirited.
Which
But
one?
the executive director's contract.
Okay.
Actually, both, I think.
They're
was
all spirited.
very spirited. And, you know, I appreciate that about this board, about the members. We agree on a lot of things and we disagree on a lot of things. But I think it's in the spirit of trying to make sure that this project succeeds and the people that lead it are successful. So I just want to say that I appreciated the efforts that were made. You know, it was the discussion was very productive, and it was in strong contrast to what I experienced with the previous transition, and that was really important to me. And I felt this process was handled the way I had hoped the last one was handled. And I just want to thank the members of the PIG. I want to thank Lori for her involvement and willingness to work with us. And I think when we finally had a chance to come face to face, we were able to iron out whatever differences were outstanding. And I just wanted to say I appreciate it, and I'm glad that we're moving forward, because I think this is a huge milestone in seeing the project to completion. I think significantly is the agreement by the board to have the options to extend, to maintain that consistency throughout the completion of this, at least this portion of the project. So with that said, thanks, Chair.
You're very welcome. I don't know why you didn't just do that when you had the mic to begin with, but that's okay. This is an example, Lisa, of what this board is like.
Chair, I think I just wanted you to hear it. Maybe.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Then I should have not allowed you to speak, because I hear it all the time. It's not like it's something new that you say. But this is this board, and welcome on board. But this is exactly what this board is like. We may not agree on a lot of things, but we do agree on a lot of things as well, and we will continue to be like this. So never lose humor. That's the most important thing. You have to have the humor, right, Kika? So with that,
Chair,
yes.
just a question for Cindy on Ms. Baker's swearing in? How does that work, and what are the logistics for that?
Funny that you should ask. I was literally just looking that up. I do know that you do have to take the oath of office.
Right.
Before a notary. It does not necessarily have to be by the city clerk, but I'm not sure if we have anyone available here at Hart to do that. So I was looking up all the requirements. But Lisa, I will be in touch with you once I figure that out. Okay.
We have a couple of notaries
We do?
upstairs,
Okay,
yes.
Perfect. Then,
Unless you choose to have the clerk do it.
Yeah, that's the other thing. You might want to just go have Glenn do it for you.
Yeah.
It's kind of gives you this feel that you're official.
I signed mine on somebody's back, I think.
Well, that's why. Okay, anything else, members? If not, anything? No? If not, this special board meeting is adjourned, and I turn it over now to POC and the agenda. Actually, we're not bad. You were supposed to start at 10, I thought. Yeah, so we're only 10:30 something. We're pretty good.
Cindy, you guys want to take a 5-minute?
that would be great.
Okay, yep,
Okay, 5-minute break. Turn it over to you.
thank you. Good afternoon. This is the Project Oversight Committee. It's Friday, September 6th, approximately 10:55 a.m. Yes, 10:55 a.m. And I'd like to call this committee meeting to order. Before we begin, I'd like to, for the sake of establishing quorum, Chair Hanabusa has agreed to serve as ad hoc committee member to establish quorum. And with that, I'd like to take roll. Committee Chair myself is present, Anthony Alto.
Present.
Ad hoc member Colleen Hanabusa. Edwin Sniffen is excused. Art Tolentino is excused. Robert Yu is excused. And I believe online we have board appointee Natalie Iwasa, who may or may not be joining us shortly. I think she is on a phone conference right now, but she will be joining us as well remotely. Moving on to agenda item number 2, public testimony. Do we have anybody in the public, in person or online, that would like to provide testimony on any of the agenda items for today? Seeing none, we'll move to agenda item number 3, the July monthly progress report. Vance and Corey. How's it going?
Good morning, Chair, board members. Vance Suda, Hart Project Director. We can go to page 5 and we'll run through the overall key items as we normally do. So the first item, procurement for CCGS. As we all are aware, the notice of award was issued to Tudor Perini on August 15th. And just want to note that was 1 week earlier than our scheduled notice of award date, so we did beat the schedule. Woohoo. Since then, we've had discussions with Tudor. They had some staff come down just to talk through the move into our offices on the 11th floor, logistics in that. Also talk through preliminary discussions on how they want to start the work, where they're looking at, and just kind of building that relationship with their team and our team. They will be here next week as well. We'll continue on those discussions. They were throwing out ideas of where they want to start, looking at the schedule, looking at access dates, if we had any concerns with what they were looking at, and just really working together and building that relationship. So very encouraging meetings we've had with them. They're excited to get started, hit the ground running once they get here, and we're all excited and anticipating that starting. Moving on to design and construction, CCUR 4. micro tunneling work. The pits are near completion, and that's roughly 30 feet below the ground level. And that's in anticipation for the micro tunneling to start here shortly in 2 weeks to a month time frame. In 2 weeks, the boring machine is expected to arrive on site, and this is at that Kapalama Canal area, if you recall. So progress there. Telecom cables are being pulled in that 1A area noted there, Laumaka Street to Mokuea Street. Significant progress there, and the telecom companies cutting over the new installed lines there. The contractor also continues to work on HECO ducts in the HCC area, right fronting HCC along Dillingham. Overall, the contractor's been great, no change in schedule at this moment. They continue to work, efficiently. The team does a great job problem solving as issues come up and work through those issues with the contractor. So very good partnership and very good progress there. CCR 4E, the first 138 kV foundation is scheduled to begin here shortly in a month time frame. That's located at the HECO substation. We continue to have ongoing discussions with HECO in terms of the sequencing and scheduling of the 138 kV work and cutting that over from the overhead to the underground and making sure that that sequence works for HECO and their switching network and their circuits, and also planning that with the CCR4 contractor to making sure that all those duct banks and everything is ready. Working with the 4E contractor to ensure that they can pull those cables in that time frame as well. So a lot of coordination there. We'll continue that discussion with HECO and the contractors. In terms of material, we did receive 2 of 8 of the 138 kV poles. So those 2 are on island currently. And then, as noted there, there was some coordination for materials being procured and mitigating some schedule. There was some material that would take quite some time to arrive here on island due to long lead times. HECO was gracious enough to provide some of the material that they have on hand, and we would replenish in order to keep schedule. So continuing to problem solve, as they come up in terms of mitigating schedule or issues and coordinating with the stakeholders such as HECO. Moving on to CCR3, majority of the work that occurred in that August timeframe was the traffic signal work, and that work occurs during the nighttime, so you don't see too much of that work during the day. They did make some progress there in terms of that traffic signals and installing all the underground conduits and duct banks and moving utilities. They are working to complete a water line right in front of the courthouse along Halakawila. This was a big undertaking there. There were some big box drains that needed to be avoided in that area, so a little complicated water line relocation, but that's coming to a close here shortly, probably by the end of the month. They also finished a lot of the electrical cabling along Halakawila, so making progress there. Coluccio, the contractor, is continuing with AIS work. I think we mentioned last month, archaeological inventory survey. During the re-evaluation process for the environmental, we needed to do exploratory work for the archaeological areas where the columns were shifted from the center to the side of the street along Halakawila. There's 22 locations that need to be investigated. 4 of the 22 have been completed, and Coluccio continues to make progress there. One thing I'd like to note about the CCR3 schedule, the schedule did push out from September timeframe to November. In recent discussions with the contractor, that schedule may push out even to the first quarter of next year. Now, even though that schedule is pushing out, there's no impact to the overall project schedule or the critical path. However, we are working with Coluccio to mitigate that schedule, and with the CCGS contractor coming on board, we can understand better where the CCGS contract wants to work and start, and ensuring that the utility work is out of the way in time for that. So continue those discussions with Coluccio and continue to push them to get complete as soon as possible now that we have the CCGS contractor on board. Segment 2, airport guideway and stations. The contractor continues to work on the stair issue. If you recall, there was ADA issues with the stairs at all the stations that needed to be corrected. We did come to an agreement on the proposed remedial work, basically a nosing cover, tread cover that's similar to what's out at LCC and some of the West Side stations. So the contractor is prepping all of the stairs for that material to be delivered this month, or next month, I'm sorry, for Pearl Harbor Station. And then Airport Station, Lagoon Station the following month, and then Middle Street in the December timeframe. So if you go out to Airport Station, all the stairs have been chipped out and prepped and repoured for that nosing to be installed on. So they continue to work on that, and they also continue to work on closing out punch list items based on walkthroughs that we've done with the contractor, whether it's touch-up paint, cleaning, things like that. They continue to do that. They did perform fire flow tests, which is another safety requirement for the fire hydrants there. They have to meet a requirement for that water flow. They did perform that at Pearl Harbor, and that did pass at that station. They continue to test for the remaining 3 stations. Moving on to systems contractor. The core systems contractor continues to make good progress in terms of their installation. They're at 99% complete with all installation of devices, equipment. They're moving forward with testing. Last time we talked about the dynamic envelope test that they've completed. That's all done. They moved forward with platform clearance test, third rail power clearance test. That's all completed. They are moving trains in segment 2 manually doing tests. They've moved into what's called VTP, or vehicle test procedures. Basically, all the testing that we did on segment 1, driving the train back and forth, checking the track circuits, automatic train control, everything else within segment 2. They're doing that currently. And look, they also performed a trial migration of the train control network from the temporary operations control center to the live operations control center during engineering hours, so downtime from service, and that was successful. So this is all in preparation of getting segment 1 and segment 2 migrated together and operating from the operations control center. Very complicated in terms of having to migrate that over and ensuring that service isn't interrupted for daytime service, making sure that everything migrates properly, there's no issues. We continue to do that, and we'll do that throughout the end of the year into next year. Next year, in that first, second quarter time frame of actually migrating everything over to OCC and running everything from the OCC for segment 1 and segment 2. And then going into trial operation, system demonstration, all the same tests that we've done on segment 1. And that's our report for July.
Thank you. Members, any questions?
Just a couple, Chair.
Yes.
Actually, to start off with, I'd like to repeat what I said to you before the meeting started, which is that I saw surprisingly little to comment on in the PMOC report, and I think that's another signal of the fact that this project is on track, and you guys are doing well. Pardon. On CCUR 3, there are delays with the Coluccio contract, which you said doesn't affect the critical path. That's good to know. What's the reason? What's going on? Why is that part of the contract delayed?
Yeah, so the traffic signal work that they were doing, every 10 feet they're running into unidentified utilities that weren't identified on the plans. They weren't toned out or anything, so they have to stop. We have to come back, find a solution, redesign, and then start work again. They also ran into some archaeological finds. There were some historic foundations, walls that were buried underground where they have to stop. We need to get Shifty's approval on, what the determination is, how can we move forward. So that took some time in terms of finding a solution so that they can move on. They've been, cooperative in terms of moving from one location to the next location when we do find those things. But it does take time to, demove from one intersection, move to another intersection, continue that work.
Right. All right. So, but what you're saying is it's not the contractor's fault. It's the circumstances they're discovering underground.
Yeah.
Which we should have known about. I mean, haven't we toned the entire route?
We have, as-built drawings, but they're all not accurate. There are things we're finding that wasn't identified previously.
Okay. And then my other question is on the AGS on the stairs, and I'm surprised to hear that we're probably not going to be able to close out this contract until December. And if I'm not mistaken, it was back in February that we told STG that we expected to see some liquidated damages at the end of all of this. Are we accruing potentially more liquidated damages as a result of this?
We continue to monitor that and assess as we move forward.
That's a diplomatic answer, but basic.
So it is accruing. Whether we assess them is going to be something different. So we'll have to have one final settlement at the end one more time. So it's accruing. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. Yes, Chair.
So on page, what is this? God, I can't read the page numbers.
Page numbers.
Huh?
It didn't print out.
Okay. Anyway, it's 2.4 contracts and procurement. And this is the one about on-call. Only because on-call has been something that we've had all along. So are we losing our on-call contractor? That's why we're in procurement, or this is just standard procurement?
Yeah, so the current on-call contract is ending at the end of the year. So this is just a re-procurement of that contract.
So are they up there? So are we gonna have the same, we've had the same on-call guy forever. So are we gonna have that, or is this potentially a new contract?
Potentially a new contractor.
Contractor.
It is an open procurement, so
So do we know if Royals is bidding or not? I guess that's the most direct question I can give you. Is Royal bidding or not?
I know that they're interested.
Okay. But we have others who are interested.
I believe so.
The other question I have is shit, I can't read the page. Anyway, it's
Do you have the section number?
I'm looking for it. It's 2.13 overall project progress and financial spend analysis. Can you find that? July 2024 prints out really nice, just not the page number. You found it? It's the usual, whatever you want to call this, monthly progress report, it says, but. No, after the curves. Where we have the total, funding. You see that? So you have 2022 recovery plan on the left, and then you have EAC on the right side. Looks like this.
Page 37.
I have no idea. That's what I said.
Looks like 35.
Yeah.
Right, right. Do you see that? Okay. So I'm curious about something that I'm always curious about. This is the total FFGA project cost 10 to 100. Do you see that? 100 is my favorite finance charges. And so under the recovery plan, we have $785 million, right? Almost $1 billion. And then when you go to the EAC, it's 785 million, total 785 million, no contingency. But when you look at incurred, our incurred amount is 229,755,000. Okay? So I'm curious about when you have 785 million as your base cost and your incurred to date, I assume, is 229,755,712. So I assume from this that we have over $500 million worth of financing costs that have not been expended, correct? So how much of that 500 plus, 550 almost million dollars unexpended do you expect to expend? Incur?
I don't know if Rick maybe want to slide
Rick probably knew immediately when I started that that's where I was going. So how much?
Yeah, I actually don't remember the exact dollar amount that's in our most recent forecast. And we're also truing up all the forecasts relative to the CCGS information. I will say that 785 is the number that was in our recovery plan.
No, I said that.
Right.
It's in
So coming out of that, based on discussion from the board, we immediately have dropped that. The information that we've been sharing with the board on an ongoing basis, I think reflects a much lower number than that too. My guess is that the positive variance from that 785 is going to be somewhere in the $400 million range. So the number spent will be, let's say $300 to $400 million.
Yeah, so we'll be, okay, that's kind of what I thought. So when I saw this, I'm going, wait a minute, how can we still be at 785
Right.
when we've incurred to date only basically
Yeah, the numbers that we were
230?
using in there, I think there's a footnote in the monthly report someplace that says we're still using information from the recovery plan. So that's why that number's higher. But yeah, the information we've been reporting to you and the information that we will true up as we work the CCGS numbers through our forecast is significantly different than that.
These are EAC numbers, right?
Yes.
The EAC versus the recovery plan number. The 785 is recovery plan.
Yeah, the
but
9148 EAC was in the recovery plan
Right.
and the 785.
So you're saying that you haven't changed, really, the EAC is still the recovery plan numbers? You haven't adjusted it at all, except the incurred line? Is that it? So when do you intend to give us an updated, so we know where we are?
So we are
Thanks, Rick.
working on updating that EAC based on the CCGS award. We did have meeting with PMOC a week ago in terms of doing that, and we have a meeting with FTA early October to go through that, and that's to talk through all the contingency and things like that, and making sure that they are comfortable with that before we present it to the board.
Because you still are reflecting 211 in the EAC as unallocated contingency, and in the recovery plan, we're reflecting it at 242, correct? So all of this has to be redone.
Correct.
Okay. So, before Michelle left, we had this whole discussion about risk refresh. That report has got to be done by now, right?
Yes. So the risk update that was done prior to the award of CCGS
Right.
that is completed, and now we're working on an updated risk post-award. So a lot of the the pre-award risk that we had, those are going to be retired, and now based on the contract and what was agreed to, where we ended up in terms of CCGS cost, that's all being worked on to be updated now.
So now that the contract has been awarded, is there a reason why the board has not seen or cannot see the risk refresh, even if you caveat it with you're going to redo it again?
Yeah, we can provide that.
Okay, so why don't you provide to the board the risk refresh? And if there's areas that you feel you're going to have to adjust, can you just let us know? I assume that you've awarded the contract, so you've awarded the contract. So there's nothing there that we need to be concerned about because you awarded CCGS. But I think that we have always wanted to know where we are on the risk refresh. So by the next board meeting, which is in a couple of weeks. Since you already done, let us see that, and also let us see where you think you're gonna have to be adjusting, because I assume that Tudor, whatever their name is, that they know that already. Thank you. Oh, and by the way, I have another question for you. I mean, this is September, and this is the July monthly progress report. So you had made a request at some point to delay the POC meeting to closer to the middle of the month. So well, you're not going to be able to be here, but assuming that we were having the middle of the month, would the August monthly progress report be ready by then?
Yes.
So if we go to the middle of the month, so next month, we will have August and, this is September, this is August. No, this is September. So we'll have August, September, and
We'll
October.
have September.
You better think about that answer, because so she's saying if the meeting is going to be the middle of the month ends, you got 2 weeks to put this report together, vet out, and get it to them by the first week of the month.
Oh, that's right, because it needs to be.
That's
No,
not
no,
gonna-
it's not the first week, because we're gonna move POC to the middle of, to the ending of the month, middle to the ending of the month.
The board meetings are about third week,
Yeah,
so that would still give us only 2 weeks to vet everything, close out everything, and post it by the second week. That's gonna be
Yeah.
tight.
Yeah.
You have to post it sooner than that, the sunshine law.
That's
Yeah,
what I'm saying,
that's why.
the second we'd have to post it, so like, be careful.
Yeah, that's true. Forget
you
about the
know,
posting time.
quite with all due respect to you guys, from what we're seeing, there isn't that much changes. So how many pages do you think you're gonna be changing out?
Every change, we changed quite a bit.
Then you should give us a more detailed summary when you summarize this. Because when I look through it, it doesn't seem like there's a hell of a lot that's substantive in terms of what you're changing in the progress.
Red line, so you can see the changes that we make.
Maybe you should do that. Maybe you should give us a red line
Yeah.
version of the progress report.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Like a clean one for the public, and we'll give you folks the red
Yeah,
line.
give us the red line version that you're changing so that we know what's being changed. Because because the other irritant is PMOC reports, right? I mean, how far behind are we PMOC reports now? Because we don't even have PMOC reports for this one.
We've pinged them, so.
Yeah, I know, but it's their fault, but we should know, we should be able to tell the public that the PMOC report is a function of the FDA not getting its act together by approving the PMOC report. But the PMOC reports, I don't think it's reasonable that we're that far behind. When was the last PMOC report? Do you remember, Kika?
The last POC.
No, the last month on the PMOC
I
report.
think it was June.
June, yeah?
We got two together, I think. last
Yeah.
time.
But it's June.
June, May and June. I think
Yeah,
we got
yeah.
together.
So this is,
Why the PMOC thinks that's helpful to us to have 2 months come at the same time?
They submitted on time.
They submitted on time.
to the FTA, and the FTA doesn't,
So it's the FTA who's missing it.
because actually, Anthony, if you go back into history, which Corey knows, they didn't want to give us the PMOC report. They meaning Hart, didn't want to give the board.
The FTA didn't want to give it.
No, the board didn't, the FTA, Hart didn't want to give the board the PMOC reports. So that was something that, when I was here the last time, became a requirement that they give us the PMOC report. But I don't remember, Corey, the PMOC reports being as late as they are now. They're really late compared to what we had before. But they did not. So in all due respect, it was our guys who didn't want to give us the PMOC reports.
Right.
And
That's water under the bridge. These days, the public at large, quite rightly, is concerned that the project is delayed.
Right.
And, in this instance, it's got nothing to do with anybody in Hawaii.
No,
The PMOC.
no, the PMOC does it on time, right? It's the
Oh, sorry,
FDA.
It's the FTA.
It's the FDA. Maybe we should write a letter to the FTA as a board and say, we would like you to please approve quickly. Or we could send it to Buttigieg.
What use is an oversight function if it's
Right.
delayed by 2 or 3 months?
Yeah, that's something that the secretary might appreciate. So maybe we should send that letter to Buttigieg and tell him, get your division up to speed. But yeah, but you know, that's irritating in the sense that June was the last one. This is September. This is unacceptable. But anyway, thank you. And then, yes, I would really like to see the red line version.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah? Give us the red line version. Sorry. I hope you know mine.
Good, no, that's a good recommendation.
Thank you. That's
Natalie,
all.
sorry, thanks, Chair. Natalie, do you have anything? Nope, okay. I just have a couple. So I'm looking at the risk charts. And, so just out of, just curiosity, generally speaking, have you guys followed up with, I guess, the contractor to see how we are as far as labor goes, and if that is becoming an issue, or is it just there as a placeholder or an ongoing issue, or is it actually, are we seeing actual impacts from labor shortage?
Are you referring to the top risk being
Yeah.
the labor constraints?
Yeah.
And that's right. So what you'll see as we're revising everything post-award is we're going to retire some of these risks as assumed to be already part of the contractor's price. I haven't had a direct conversation with the contractor. I don't know, maybe Vance might have more to add on what they're seeing as far as labor, but their price should assume the labor challenges, the labor risks that they're taking on.
We haven't had any discussions in terms of this topic, labor. I'm sure it's a concern of theirs. You know, a lot of the local contractors are seeing, you know, as they've seen before, issues with getting labor. You know, having some of the utility contractors, you know, working 5 days a week and overtime on the weekends, it does take a toll on, you know, the labor, to where, you know, they're calling in sick the following week or whatever it may be because they're overworked. And that's due to, you know, the constraints and the shortage of labor that's available.
So, I mean, I know that on DBB 511, you know, the CCUR 4, that's been in kind of an ongoing issue. I think it's kind of dropped in risk score, if I'm correct. So, I mean, it doesn't appear as though it's affecting the time schedule, but has the contractor indicated that some of their labor, you know, what they had indicated on their bid initially versus what is actually out there, is that related to the shortage, or is it just is there other reasons? I mean, it doesn't appear to be impacting the schedule. So is that why it's dropping on the?
So I believe, and so you're referring to the 511.24,
Yep.
yeah, the Dillingham contractor performance risk. I don't know if they want to put it on the screen, but it's a couple more pages down.
Can I just add to your question, Kika? Because that contract, CCR4, in theory, they're supposed to be running 3 shifts and they're only running 2. Is that a result of labor shortage, or because they just don't have the bandwidth to run 3 shifts at the same time and they don't see the need because we're still pretty much on the critical path?
Yeah. I don't think it's labor shortage, and Matt, I don't know if you have anything.
No, I don't think it's labor shortage. I think with them right now, they're really just sequencing their work and they're kind of throttling their resources overall based on the schedule and their burn rate. So, and a lot of times, I mean, with a lot of the utilities, they may not actually have that third heading to go to. You know, a lot of things have to be moved before something else can be done. So 4 is definitely the most complicated project right now, and I do feel like they're attacking the work as aggressively as they can. Have not heard of a resource issue on that project.
Okay. And then the last one I had was on the fixed facility contractor delay. Can you kind of maybe expand on that a little bit? 920.
Is that the second?
Yep.
ISRS you're looking at?
Yep.
So yeah, so those access delays are potentially impacting the core systems contract. We're working through those issues now with HRH. So that does remain a high risk for us as far as cost, impact, and schedule for that matter.
So is there no other project that's impacted by labor shortages? I mean, I was talking to a very senior development executive on the island the other day. He said it's not working.
No, I think we're seeing it in our costs.
Seeing the cost,
Yeah, I think
not
we're.
just in the absence of people actually out there doing the job.
I think Vance hit it on the head. I mean, on the projects where they've been running like 6-day-a-week shifts for an extended period of time, we are starting to hear and see some burnout and seeing some absenteeism. And so we're working with the contractor again to sequence the work and figure out where we're getting the most productivity. Are nights more productive? Are days more productive? And so I'll say on CCUR3, I have heard some resourcing issues as far as burnout from 6-day-a-week work being extended and continuous.
Okay. Lori, do you want to add anything or anything you want to highlight or note?
No, I'm good, Kika, thank you.
Okay. Members, any other questions? Chair? No? Wow, okay. All right, well, if there are no other questions, that's the only agenda item we have today in the POC. We appreciate you guys' time. If there's no other questions or comments, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.